Weatherman, weatherman, we can't allow any further delay. So stop your waiting.
Well, hello and welcome to podcast number 85. You joined the First Alert Weather Podcast. Thanks for joining us once again, folks. It's been a long week for the weather folks. It's been a longer week for those of you that have been without power, dealing with downed trees, extreme cold. We're going to kind of cover this storm here in a little bit of detail. Maybe we'll get more of the facts and figures for next week, but we're just kind of keeping our heads above water in the Weather Center. Thank you so much for joining. We've got Camilla Ortiz. How are you, Camilla?
Good, hanging in there. Sleepy, but we're doing it.
And Katie Suniga. How are you?
Yes, so I would say the same thing. Sleepy, but we're doing it.
So, yeah, I mean, it's just been a crazy week. Like I said, not just for the weather people, just for life here in the Portland metro area especially, and we are still dealing with stuff today. So we were hoping maybe we'd be out of it today, and yes, it did warm up yesterday. So we're going to cover this. If you're watching the online version where you can see the video, we always recommend that because we use weather graphics in the weather business. So here's our little rundown. We're going to talk about the cold, freezing rain that has returned to parts of the metro area today. We're going to do a brief recap of the snow, wind, and cold storm. And then we'll recap the freezing rain that then appeared on Tuesday afternoon, showed up on schedule, and a very brief look at the Cascade snow, which is back here. So let me get into my graphics here and advance to the next one. So here we are. These are the 9 a.m. temps. We are recording this at 9 a.m. on Thursday. It's above freezing everywhere west of the Cascades except near the Columbia River Gorge, which is portions of the Portland metro area. Cold air. Yesterday we had a west wind. Briefly, Camilla and I were working last night, and Hood River briefly surged to 40 degrees with the west wind.
Yeah.
But then the cold air came right back in. In fact, look at the pressure gradient. We use this, folks, the cross cascade pressure gradient from Portland over to the Dalles. It was flat, or actually slight westerly. The 5 and the 7, if you're watching the video version here, the 5 and the 7, that's the date over on the left side and the hour. So this is in England time, Z time. So this was about 10 p.m. last night. There was no wind through the gorge. It went calm, which was nice. The east wind was gone. But then since that time, high pressure surged back in east of the Cascades, and we're back to 11 millibars easterly. So the wind is just screaming. None of the anemometers pick it up because they're all frozen and encased in ice. And here's the current plot of the metro area. We've got the temperatures are in the black there. You've got the wind speeds in the red. A lot of wind speeds very low because they're getting encased in ice. But basically this area in red is where cold air is spilling out of the gorge, where 34 degrees or colder. And these are the areas where we're going to see probably some pretty thick ice accumulation today. I just checked the latest WRF GFS model this morning. And our model agrees liquid rain through about 3 p.m. 3 to 4 p.m. Then it goes dry, which is good, but that's quite a bit of rain. There could be a half inch of fresh icing, especially east of I-205, the hills. See the West Hills down around freezing? Yeah. Even I think that's Cooper Mountain there on the southwest side of Beaverton, even maybe a little bit there.
But, Euro was giving us, close to like 3/4 of an inch of liquid rain?
Yeah, that's a lot of icing.
Yeah.
And some of the trees did not drop their ice because it didn't get above about 34. Some areas east metro. Where I live here up at 1,000 feet, actually it warmed up to 35, and all the trees were clear last night when I got home. But then now they're icing up again. I'm at 28 degrees. I'm actually that station way over on the right side right here. So we're into freezing rain today. We're recording this, like I said, 10 a.m. On Thursday, so we've got about 5 more hours of steady rain. So we're going to see ice accumulation in this area. I think this area might expand a little more towards St. John's, down to maybe West Lynn, Oregon City. Temperatures keep dropping there. Road temps, we talked about this. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, that's a good chunk of the Portland metro area. So if you're not seeing this graphic, I mean, that's more than 50%, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Central and east side, it is.
Wow.
Clark County, good. I think we're okay in Clark County unless you're right along the Columbia River. These are kind of the classic areas. When we have big ice storms in Portland, when it's ice only, these are the areas. In December of 96, there was an inch and a half of ice right in this area, just really devastating east of I-205. These are the typical areas exposed to that thin layer of cold air coming out of the gorge, but yet it's rainy overhead. In fact, let me back up two graphics. Government Campus, 32 degrees. So the actual snow level today is up around 4,000 feet. But that little thin layer of cold air just slid right back in. And we did expect that. Models forecast that pretty well. We were in denial. I mean, I was. Even though I'm forecasting it, I'm like, no, don't come back.
Yeah.
So this right here, can you go back real quick? Go back to the gradient there.
Yep.
So we were talking about this, and I don't know if he told you, Camilla. So you're at that negative 10.8. Mark, can you tell everybody what we were when we had the wind on Saturday?
We're getting there. 17.7 on Saturday.
17.7 was our pressure gradient on Saturday.
I had never seen. I think once I saw 15, but generally it's extremely rare. Like just a few times in my career has it gone above 12.5 or 13. So this is at the high end. I've noticed
we're saying historic.
Highest gradients do come with the coldest air too. The cold air is really dense and heavy, so you can have a 10 millibar gradient, I suppose, if it's 45 degrees, but the wind often is not as intense. And the intensity of wind out in the Western Gorge is directly related to how warm it is overhead too. So if it's a big inversion, like now, we really have an inversion. All that air is being forced. That movement of air is being forced through a very narrow channel vertically. So it's like a thin little fire hose. Whereas, like on Saturday, it was pretty spread out, as we'll see. We've got the wind gust. So that's what we have right now. Another 5 hours of rain. We're going to see more power lines down and trees breaking over on the east side of town. And how much precip? This is total starting at, this would have been early this morning. Sure enough, there's about a 1/4 inch here up here in the metro. The first kind of light blue color there is about a 3. Did I say a 1/4? I'm at 3/4 inch.
Yeah.
There. Do I have an ice glazing? But it is interesting. So the graph, now models, the higher the resolution the model, the better they handle the terrain. For example, a 12-kilometer resolution model means there's a data point and it's calculated every 12 kilometers. It's always in kilometers, right? So a 12-kilometer model doesn't see the Columbia River Gorge very well. So in a situation like this, it's all about the cold air pouring through at the lowest elevation. So how well a model sees the Columbia River Gorge and models the resolution is directly related to how much like cold air it's going to bring westward, right? So it can see it better. I think as I recall, the 12-kilometer WRF GFS model, I think that sees the gorge as like a 2,000-foot pass because it has to kind of smooth it out because the resolution of the data points. I remember that early in my career. Whereas you get this as a 4-kilometer model, and even this isn't the best. The UW, we've shown it a few times, has a 1.33 kilometer, and boy, that model really shows the details of exactly where the wind is and where the cold air makes it through. But
something that's standing out to me on this graphic is I see a lot of E's. Yes,
so that's easterly wind. And so the easterly wind, this is Thursday, this is all day today, this is into Friday. Notice that east wind is just screaming all the way through Friday.
Yeah.
So clearly it's going to be cold. The cold air has come back in, and it holds PDX right around freezing all the way through tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
The precip stops after 3 p.m., which is great, but there's not going to be any significant thawing the rest of today, of course, because temperatures actually fall. And actually tomorrow, mid-30s. So very slow thaw.
Yeah.
In areas exposed to the gorge wind. Saturday, finally, the wind backs off, but areas near the gorge still stay pretty close to freezing. Saturday, the rest of the metro area is pretty reasonable, probably around 40 or so, low 40s. But then some more precip comes back Saturday night. And notice we're in the mid to upper 30s Saturday night. This means more ice and snow in the gorge.
Jeez.
So it never seems to end out there. Or should I say here, because it's outside my window. I'm 20 degrees here. So the point here is that cold air is still being piped in, and that is pretty strong, that easterly flow right in here. That concerns me a bit for this evening. Although when it's such a narrow channel like that of air coming in, I think it's just the areas that are close to the gorge that would get the really strong wind as opposed to Saturday.
So I think a lot of people are wondering, just piggybacking off of that, at what point can folks expect to have their neighborhood roads actually getting better? Like a noticeable difference? Second half of the weekend, maybe?
Yeah, Sunday.
Yeah.
Sunday.
Okay.
There'll be some slow melting on. There'll be some, a teeny tiny bit of melting tomorrow, a little bit of melting Saturday, a little more Saturday, but Sunday looks like the wind really backs off and we actually might get brief southerly in spots.
Yeah.
But, the problem is I noticed Salem, and we talked about this on air last night. I noticed Salem was sitting there in the mid-40s, low to mid-40s all day yesterday, and yet there was still a ton of ice and snow sitting on the edges of the road, which means I'm thinking because it was extra cold, the ground is extra chilled. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's just taking forever. So, that isn't quite in our direct area of forecast and to say, when will this snow come off my side street?
Right.
We can tell you temperatures, but we can't give you, that's not really a meteorological thing. It just takes time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Bummer.
traffic. You know, if you have a road that has more people living on it in a neighborhood, those roads are going to be okay. I noticed that when I got home last night, the main roads in my neighborhood were pretty clear. They were pretty good. But we turned down a small street that doesn't have any houses on it to our street, which is a dead end, and it was like through the
really bad
slushy ice on my street. So my street was the worst I went on coming home.
Mm-hmm. I also had one of the worst drives I've ever had coming home last night in the last mile.
How was that?
Well, the problem is there was maybe the leftover snow, sleet with some freezing rain on top of it wasn't deep. The road wasn't plowed. It was like maybe 2 to 3 inches. Mm-hmm. But then it had been above freezing for most of the day, like 35. So my car was just trying to plunge through this really thick stuff. And I had to I almost started kind of backing off the edge of the driveway. I had to back up and then go forward, back up forward to make a path.
Yeah.
And it was ridiculous. So I'm hoping today, actually, now that it's frozen, it might actually be better. I'll let you know. I'm thinking I should pack a bag for the hotel just in case things really go south.
Okay, I have to tell you folks, that says a lot because this whole time this has been going on, Mark, you've been saying, it's okay, I'm okay. I'm like, you're going to pack a bag just in case. You're like, no, I'm fine. I have the right tires. I have the right car. I've been doing this for 30 years. For you to say you're packing a bag, to me, that says, be ready, folks.
Yeah.
Boy, I sure sleep like a baby in my own bed, though.
I know.
Just ask for the top floor. Just ask for the top floor.
That's the secret.
Good advice.
That's the secret.
Good advice.
I learned that the first night, switched rooms the second, did fine the rest of the time.
Yeah. Okay, so January, you see the January so far, look at those numbers. I mean, just how cold was it? Right now we're running about 4 or so degrees below normal. First week of the month, of course, was very mild. But then look at that high of 21 on the 13th, 23 on the 14th, and 30 on the 15th, and then back to 27 on the 16th. So we had 5 days, about 120 hours. Didn't one of you saw the exact figure, the exact number? Was it 126 hours, Camilla?
I didn't see that.
You see the exact hours? You saw it on somebody else's.
Oh, yeah, someone else's tweet. Yeah, potentially, maybe. I don't remember what the number is.
Yeah, it's not important. But it was about 5 days at or below freezing. And you see the the coldest day was Saturday, of course. Now, here's the deal. Temperatures are calendar days, weather records, I should say. So the high was 21, yes, but that was early in the day. It was really in the teens the whole day. But it doesn't matter. For the purposes of record keeping, the last time we were at 21 or lower for a high was in 1990. So this was our coldest daytime high officially since 1990. I mean, my entire career. So this was the coldest day in Portland of my career. And you can see how we've had colder days. Although now that doesn't – I remember thinking that 1968 number, December of 68, it rained – or it was either freezing rain or snow that day, a high of 14. I used to think, how could that possibly happen? And now it's like, oh, that was only 2 degrees colder than what we experienced on Saturday, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really brutal.
Yeah.
So 21, and this will stay this way. I think the low through the whole period at PDX was 15. We never had a clear, calm, cold night. I mean, if we would have cleared out and gone calm, we could have had single digits. Regardless, it was the coldest January temperature this period since 2017 after that snowstorm. We did go calm during that snowstorm, I think, and that's how we hit 11. I'm sorry, after the snowstorm when we had the clear and calm conditions, we hit 11. And that's how
with
we
the
got
snow on the ground still.
Right. During that storm, I think it was in the mid to upper 20s as the snow was falling. So really cold. And, I was very happy. I was getting cranky and arguing with somebody on Twitter yesterday about the warm-up that barely occurred in Portland.
Oh, no. Yeah.
I was trying not to. You can't be engaging in people and then things get nasty and whatnot. But the timing of this storm on Saturday, I mean, this was just the forecast. It arrived right on schedule. And that was the cold air came in from the east on schedule. The temperatures warmed up, cooled down, I should say. Here's government camp. As that cold air sloshed in that evening, was it Friday evening or was it Saturday? Maybe it was Saturday. 22. Is that a 22 at the bottom of the screen there?
23.
23 at 6 p.m. And 1 hour later, it was 8 at government camp. So the cold air just sloshed over from north central Oregon very quickly. It just really did fill up like a bathtub, which was pretty neat. This was 7 a.m. Saturday, model forecast. That's what happened. It started precipitating in the morning, changed over. Now, here's the deal. We did expect – where's our forecast? We kind of went for this. Here was the snow forecast. We said 2 to 6 inches that morning, Saturday morning. And we could see just to our south in the South Metro, boy, not much snow. And let me go one more. And we expected the icing, the freezing rain down in the valley. We called for a pretty devastating ice storm down there. Here's what was different. There was more ice pellets mixed in the metro, and there was not nearly as much precipitation as we expected in general. So we ended up with 1.6 inches of snowfall. Weather Service also includes sleet as snowfall. We learned that last December.
And the ice pellets too.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, sleet and ice pellets sleet and ice pellets.
Yeah.
Little chunks of ice. And then I did discover back here, let's go back here. I don't know if I told both of you this, but I talked to the folks that run our graph model, and they said, yes, sleet or ice pellets is included in the snowfall total. So if they're anticipating an inch of ice pellets, that's going to go in as an inch of snow. So we have to remember that when we're forecasting that may have included ice pellets right here. Because remember, we only get the product we get is only either snow or liquid freezing rain glazing, one or the other. It's like the eye doctor, A or B. So that's one thing that was different. Not as much precip. The snow sure did show up to our north. I mean, there was up to 6 inches. That part was perfect on this forecast from the metro area northward. Lots of snow up there. Longview.
So I guess, considering the ice pellets, Graph did pretty well then.
Yeah, it did okay. Just not as much precip as we expected.
Yeah.
And I did on Saturday morning, because I work Saturday morning with Andy. We did to the north. We did say between, up to 8 in that area, because it did look like this. We kept it at the 4 to 6 or 2 to 6 or whatever we had in the metro area, but we let people know north in the Longview area up there that it looked like it was going to be more, because it appeared that the storm had slowed down and it was moving very slowly, and so. We made that one tiny tweak on Saturday morning, just everybody to the north. No, you can get a bit more. And I saw one of your social media things. You were asking if there were people saying they got in that 8 range, even a little more.
There were a few up there.
There were a few up there that did end up getting that. So
there were some there were some disappointed people. I think the impression was there was going to be 6 inches of snow to play in. It's kind of hard to play in snow when the east wind is gusting to 50 and it's 15 degrees. Most kids don't really want that. And the other is we just didn't get as much snow. One other change. So we expected a pretty devastating ice storm based on our models going with liquid rain freezing on contact in the valley. And there was some of that. But Salem picked up, and so did Albany and Corvallis, picked up mainly ice pellets. So ice pellets don't stick to power lines. They don't stick to trees. So we avoided a devastating ice storm in the mid-valley, which was good. There was a lot of damage over along the coast. Central coastline, just inland from the beaches at Newport, and also through the Central Coast Range. So that was correct. And farther south off this map forecast, huge devastation around Eugene, Springfield, and then up like into the McKenzie River Valley. I saw a quote from somebody saying they heard Lane Electric may take up to 2 weeks to get some people back online down there. So big, devastating ice storms. So that was correct there as well. And this is kind of hard to see, but sure enough, models, I think, the WRF GFS did predict about 17 millibars from the Dalles to Portland, and that's what we had. This was at midday on that day, 16.8 millibars. So models did perfect forecasting the gradient, the intensity of the cold. I was doubtful that it was going to be that cold. They did really well with that. Very happy with that. And here are the peak gusts, and there are many, many stations that went offline that day because the power went out. For example, you don't see Vista House, you don't see Corbett, where I'm sure there were gusts into the 80s and maybe 90. But gust of 50 made it all the way into the portions of the West Hills. There is a missing, the Sunset Transit Center, which I passed by on the way to work. That one went offline. I think the peak gust was 49 before it went offline.
Was this Saturday?
This was Saturday, yep.
So I remember 83 is what I saw at Vista Point.
There was, okay. Vista House, Crown Point.
Or Vista House, Crown Point,
I like that. You made a new portmanteau there, the two words together.
Put them together. That's what I'm saying. I'm sleep deprived a little. But that's what I meant.
No, that was a good eye. You caught that before it went offline. Just the way this thing plots it works that way. But a few things stick out here. One is the 56 down in South Gresham. I mean, that one usually is like 30, 35 during these east wind events. 52 up there in southeast Portland. 52 also down there at, this is in Happy Valley. 49, probably before it went offline, somewhere in southwest Portland. So much tree devastation in these areas here. And then look at this. The 64 in Marmot and Sandy. I mean, that's a sensor I usually hardly pay attention to because it'll gust to like 28 or 32. So Sandy, huge devastation here through Clackamas County. So the cold air came right over the northern Oregon Cascades and came down the west slopes like this.
Yeah.
Which is unusual. It didn't just come through the gorge. And the other strange thing, the wind did not come down into Clark County. This is a known area in eastern Clark County for downslope windstorms. Several times in the past, just devastating windstorms like what we had down here. For some reason, it didn't come down the South Washington Cascades. Don't know why. Somebody needs to study that.
Yeah, weird.
One last point on this. The most reliable weather stations, see like the here, that Sandy, Marmot stations, these are all PGE weather stations that they've installed after the fires for fire weather. But those weather stations don't use their solar powered, and so they keep going all through the storm. The wind may ice up at some point, but they keep going. So they were the most reliable weather stations. So go PGE. I mean, we had so many down here at Chehala Mountain, same thing. We've never had data like this during the middle of a storm in all these outlying areas.
Nice. So those were installed when? In
the last 3 years.
Oh, okay.
Pacific Core, same thing. I mean, there must be hundreds across the state of Oregon and then into southern Washington, mainly Oregon. But I think that was, don't hold me to this legally, but I think that that was maybe part of they started doing it on their own, but maybe settlement with the state, too, is like, okay, we're going to be more proactive with fire weather. Remember the planned PSPS, planned safety power shutoffs?
Okay, yeah.
In the fall when we have the east wind and it's dry, they have to know how strong the wind is blowing in these rural areas. Like, hey, it's getting too windy. Let's shut off the power.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So anyway, those are great for meteorologists. We never used to have that sort of information. Okay, so that's that storm. So then we had a break. It was cold and windy Monday and sunny. Oh, Jeff is texting me right now. Hey, by the way, Jeff Forgeron, you usually see him on this podcast. You haven't seen him in about 7 weeks. He will be back from family leave for kind of part-time type work on Thursday the 25th, 1 week from now. So maybe he'll join us for next week's podcast. Maybe. Let's see what he said. Make sure it isn't anything offensive.
Oh no, just cold read it.
Yeah, cold read.
Just kidding.
36 at PDX, 31 on my deck. He's in Southwest Portland. Top of the Ponderosa is frozen again. Oh, he has a big Ponderosa pine.
Oh, thanks, Jeff.
On the spot report. Thank you, Jeff. He just joined our podcast. I don't know if Gray Corporation Legal would allow that. I want to retract that last 1 minute. We're going to have to edit. Remember to edit this out, folks. I don't want to get sued by the company. All right. Man. So then we had the break on Monday. Then we had freezing rain. Again, I'm pretty happy. Well forecast. We said it would show up in the mid to late afternoon, 4 p.m. And right at the top of our show, this drop started appearing on our Shriner's camera. We had 0.4 inch officially out at the Weather Service forecast office of freezing rain, glaze ice. So that caused a little more damage, a few more outages. I mean, generally, I think you need to be up around a ½ inch to cause a lot of damage. And here's my see it happen graphic. This is yesterday, Wednesday, what day is today? Wednesday the 17th.
Thursday.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know today is Thursday, but this is yesterday.
You can never be too sure.
Oh, I don't know what day. I mean, I've been working every day since Monday the 8th, so I don't even know what day it is.
Oh, my gosh.
This weekend's going to be glorious. But anyway, look how these are the areas that hit 40 yesterday. This is Wednesday the 17th. And the whole southern metro, the south wind made it up into the metro as models forecast, but then it kind of stalled. And the whole rest of the metro just sat somewhere between 32 and 37 the rest of the day. So, brief thawing south.
Was that part of the forecast a bust? We were thinking it would spread a little bit more, right? Yeah, a little further north.
Yeah, all models had it, even the highest resolution models had it very briefly, what we call mixing out, the south wind punching in for, our graph only had it, south wind making it to PDX for about 3 hours. Then it was going to go calm and drop into the 30s, which is interesting because that did happen in these areas. Jumped up into the low 40s, then it went calm or light north again and came back into the 30s.
Dropped back down.
That part of the forecast by the models was right on, but it just didn't. And here's the other thing that happened. Look out at the west end of the gorge, which had been the coldest, windiest place. It did warm up out there. The wind went calm in the gorge yesterday. And yesterday during the 10 p.m. show, the Corbett Station was the warmest place in the metro area at 41 degrees.
So weird.
So basically then there was a very thin, maybe 500-foot thick layer of near freezing air that just was left stranded in these lowest elevations, middle of the city. And and up north towards Clark County. So I've had enough of that graphic. Again, I think we're going to have some facts and figures coming up next week because there were some interesting ones. I was looking at the Dalles. It was the coldest weather since around 1990 as well. The amount of people out of power, 160,000. We'll have a few more coming up next week, maybe a little more comprehensive, a bit more to add, or maybe we'll be tired of it by that time. We'll see.
Oh, no, I'm sure if we have Jeff back on, he's going to want a full debrief, right?
Oh, my gosh. Jeff is going to have to relive the last 2 months.
Yeah.
Wait, nothing happened the first month and a half, so never mind. That'll be pretty easy.
Just the last month.
Yeah.
Just the last 9 days, actually. Did anything else happen? No.
Well, there was that day that we had snow, and remember you were doing a Facebook Live, and I was watching it turn from rain to snow on our Seaside camera. Do you remember that? That was way back at the very beginning, and we got a little snow.
That seems so pathetic now, doesn't it? The one evening of like a trace of snow. Yeah.
But we were very excited because we said it's going to happen. And we watched it like move across the Coast Range and then into where we were, and it happened.
I blocked it because this episode set me off now. All right, so the other thing that happened during these 9 days, this was actually happening while we were doing last week's podcast, but we had a 9-day period with 7 to 9 feet of snow in the Cascades, 106 at Timberline, 110 at Meadows. It was kind of tough to get these numbers. You know, they might be plus or minus a foot because sensors had all sorts of problems up there. Power outages, those poor ski areas dealing with power outages. I know Meadows was without power for days, running the lifts and the lodge with several generators.
Wow.
What a mess. Everything happened at once.
Yeah.
So this was around January 1st. Mount Hood was 20% of normal. Now it's 101. Yeah. Basically, everybody's pretty much back to normal averaged across the state.
Yeah.
That's great.
In 9 days.
Amazing.
Yeah. Is that the last graphic I have? Yeah.
And we're done.
Yeah. So that pretty much wraps it up.
Please.
That pretty much wraps it up here. Hopefully no more snow. All our models show, you know what, while we're talking, I am going to look very briefly, I'm going to look at the ensembles. I looked yesterday, in the last few days, just this very mild pattern continues. I was seeing like one graphic we use, like the Euro ensembles are mostly in the 50s this last week and a half of January, it looks like. There are even hints that at some point we could touch a 60 in there, maybe. And if I look at the 24-hour snow, oh my gosh. The ensemble chart, I have to share this. This is so good. This is beautiful.
It's going to feel like a beach vacation.
Hang on.
It
is going to feel really good. Let me get in the right window. No, I don't need to open more windows. Here we go. It's almost like you can see the mice running around in my brain.
Absolutely.
Right here we go.
That's what makes the video version such a joy.
Look at that. So the chart, what we're looking at, European ensembles, 50 different members, the next 2 weeks. Each member, it shows the 24-hour snowfall every 6 hours. There are 2 members that try to develop a trace of snow in the next 2 weeks, which takes us to the end of the month, which means basically we are in a very warm pattern again. If we could have gotten rid of this low-level cold air, we would have been out of this thing. You know, if we would have been out of it Tuesday after that freezing rain, we would have just said, oh, it's mild. But anyway, once we do get rid of the cold air, and we will eventually get rid of it, it looks very mild. I mean, the best skiing of the whole winter has now ended. I mean, there'll still be snow up there, but like this weekend, it'll be kind of a mixture of rain and snow up there at the ski area. So, yeah. Anyway, so back to mild, folks. We just got to get rid of this freezing rain today and hope it doesn't cool off too much more here in the central part of town for too much ice. So, final thoughts? Is that it? Can we wrap it up?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to ask Mark, and maybe this is something you're going to go into more detail next week when we do a bigger recap, but can you compare kind of this event with the lingering cold and the lingering wind events to other winter storms we've seen in your career? You've been here much longer than me and Katie. Yeah.
This was, and we had a feeling this maybe kind of might be the case. This was the most devastating, not snow, not freezing rain, not ice pellets, but the most devastating wind plus cold event I've seen in my whole career here. I mean, the amount of people's lives that were messed up by this, and the frozen pipes, then all the power outages, just all these issues. But the intensity of the cold and the wind that day, Saturday, I had never seen. I've seen stronger wind, bigger windstorms, but usually it's 40, 45 degrees. The wind comes from the south. I've seen it colder, but not with the wind at the same time. Yeah. And as for the warm-up, some people said, oh, this is like 2004. It never seems to want to warm up. Well, that's not quite the case. That was where we just sat there locked in the ice for 4 or 5 days, and we kept saying, it's going to warm up, it's going to warm up. No, we knew, yes, it didn't warm up fast enough yesterday, but it did partially warm up. And we did also expect the freezing rain to show up again today. That was 2 days ahead of time. That was becoming somewhat obvious that was going to happen in the East Metro. So not quite the same. I mean, models this time, this is the best I've seen models perform during a big event. So
yeah, crazy. Cool. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us, folks. Thanks to both of you, Camilla, Katie. We've got to go back to work today. Well, Katie, you have a day off, right?
Oh, man, I'm going to sleep all day long.
All right. So we'll leave you alone. Thanks for joining us, folks. We will see you again next week for episode 86, hopefully with Jeff Forger.
Oh, stop. You're waiting and hesitating and tell us